call this meeting of the Lake Country Classical Academy to order at 6:03 p.m. on Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. In accordance with the Wisconsin Open Meetings Law, the required public notice of this meeting ran in the February 9th issue of the Waukesha Freeman, and the meeting agenda has been posted on the LCCA website as well as the front entry doors at both school campuses. Please let the roll call show that all board members are present. Both Tom Gale and Tim Peterson are calling in remotely. Please join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So everyone received a copy of tonight's agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda? So moved. Moved by Taryn. I second it. Okay. Any discussion about tonight's agenda? Okay. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. So on to the citizens forum. I don't believe does anyone want to make a comment tonight that didn't get a chance to fill out a form? Okay, so no comments tonight for citizens forum, so we're moving on to approval, the consent agenda, approval of minutes from the January 7th board work session, as well as the minutes from our last regular meeting on January 18th and closed session. Would someone like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Second? I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from both the January 7th board work session as well as the January 18th regular board meeting and closed session, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. Okay, so we're on to discussion items. First up is the leadership report. Margaret.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'll start with an update on our relationship with Hillsdale. We had a lot in the last month of interaction. The coaching team was here, and you should have since received their summary report on their visit on the 24th and 25th. And we followed up on that report with the faculty and staff just today in our faculty meeting, shared out the praise, and presented some of the areas for improvement, and shared that we would be dispersing their helpful links and tips in a more manageable, a little bit at a time kind of pace. That went over very well. And then additionally, since I saw you last, Mr. Wagner and I went to Hillsdale and attended the leadership conference as well as the job fair. And at the leadership conference, we picked different sessions, literacy essentials, how to prioritize and coach that curriculum piece specifically. There was a topic on the senior thesis that I attended, knowing that we'll be needing to implement that in 2 years. Mr. Wagner himself presented on Singapore math, and there were several other opportunities. We heard from Jordan Peterson, who zoomed in and gave a presentation, and then also Leonard Sachs was there, gave a presentation to just the school leaders, and then we had the opportunity to actually attend his presentation to the parents of Hillsdale Academy later that evening. At the end of the week, we attended the job fair. We had a booth at the job fair. Hillsdale students flow through, stop by, we talk resume, we talk LCCA, and then we did have the opportunity the following day to have an interview. We had 3 interviews established. One student texted and said, further thought, I could never see myself moving to Wisconsin, so that did not pan out, but we did interview 2 other candidates and remain in conversation with both of them currently. And And so it was just a good opportunity to network with other school leaders, but also make have our presence known at the job fair for the students. As far as current enrollment, you can see our numbers there. We're at 497 students currently this year, but we're also looking forward to next year. We closed re-enrollment of current families, and 95% of our current student body has re-enrolled to return next year. During the February 1st lottery, we offered 92 seats in grades kindergarten through 11. We have one offer waiting to be accepted, 58 students accepted and in progress, and 29 of those fully verified. There remain 205 waitlisted students in kindergarten through 6th grade and 33 waitlisted students in 7th through 11th, and there are 5 available seats in 8th grade. You received the business office financial reports last week, but our overall cash projections are very strong. Actual cash on hand for January came in at $547,395. It's favorable to LCCA due to higher revenue in state and grant revenues, less accounts payable, and less payroll than projected. If you reviewed the budget versus actual report, you can see LCCA is trending on pace. Our income statement also shows a surplus of $113,482 and some change. It's also a matter of note that our per pupil aid payment came in on February 13th at $1,152,210, and our 3% authorizer payment will go to the LCOU later this week. Also, as follow-up to our offsite January 7th meeting, Dr. Wozniak and Mrs. Kari have been investigating a software program that might help us manage the donor information that we have, that we're building as our donor base, and we've narrowed it down to our top 3 programs that will likely be most beneficial to LCCA in this manner. One's called DonorView, one's called Bloomerang, and the other is Razor's Edge. And we have one more demo scheduled with one of those, and then we'll be able to identify our preferred software and our recommended software by next month's board meeting. In the Student Services Department, moving on to academics and student life, we remain current and within the allotted timeframes of all of our timelines. We will push out an indicator age survey, which is to parents, the DPI survey to parents of students with an IEP on 504. And we have 43 out of 46 students in environmental code A, which is 93%, and the state standard or goal is 80%. We currently facilitate 46 IEPs, and we have 3 504 plans. Our RTI program is up and running. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. Excuse me. 32 of those students are in Tier 2, and 2 of those students are in Tier 3 of our intervention program. 3 of 4 students who have gone through the referral process have been found eligible for special education, and 5 evaluations are currently in process. The access test, which is the state required test for English language learners, has been completed, and all materials have been submitted. And the DLM test, which is given to certain students based on IEP recommendations, that test window opens in March, and some of our staff are currently completing training for that. Over just last week, this month I should say, we facilitated a parent presentation at the West Campus about school security. We had the Oconomowoc Police Department give that presentation. It was attended by about 18 parents of students at our West Campus. Following that presentation, 2 days later, the police department sent officers to present to students at the West Campus. They heard, they're divided into groups by grade level, so 7th and 8th graders heard one presentation, and 9th and 10th graders heard another presentation, and then we facilitated our first lockdown drill on February 10th, and had police officers on campus for that drill, and had the projected construction projects are moving along. So as you know, we intend to remodel the basement here over the summer. And so that required some amendments to the lease. And St. Matthew's is moving out and Bridge Church is moving in on March 1st. And we've worked well with Bridge Church at this point, and they are going to, we've made an agreement with them on what the remodel downstairs will look like. They had some preferences, we had some preferences, we came to an agreement and signed off on that. They also will allow us to, since we are turning the basement into 2 classrooms, they will allow us to use some sanctuary space. They're ripping out all of the pews in the sanctuary, and they're using portable, I don't even know what, portable pews maybe, or chairs, I'm not sure, but the sanctuary has the ability to be an empty open space. And so we amended our lease agreement to acquire a little bit more space between the hours of 11 and 1 on weekdays, so that we can have lunch still in a cafeteria style without having to go back to pulling tables out from underneath the stage and using the gym at this campus in that way. So we were very pleased with that agreement. And then they have their own plans for the first level of the church, calling it the Sanctuary Project. As they're ripping out the pews, they're also remodeling that front lobby space in the church portion of this building. There will be a cafe in there, and I worked really hard to have it open on weekdays for the teachers, but I couldn't get that finalized. But that project starts on March 1st. So a communication has gone to all the parents of West students, just informing them that that will be taking place. There'll likely be a dumpster in the parking lot. We have to rearrange how we use the parking lot to make space for construction crew, cars, and things. And so we'll present all that to the faculty at the next week's faculty meeting, but the parents are aware now that the church is doing a remodeling project, and it has some minor effect on our day-to-day transitioning, how we get from our half of the building down to the basement. Will involve a little bit of an outdoor quick hop, step, and a jump from one door to the other outdoors, so pray for a little rain in the spring. But we're very excited for the things that the Bridge Church has in store for this facility. They're hoping to, in the summer, put in new floors in the gym and potentially a sound system. That's their, like, if they have enough money, they will also do that. So we're hoping for that as well. Additionally, at East, we have made some significant progress in our hope to add classrooms to the upper elementary building. We have signed a contract with Vesta for 4 more classroom mobile units, and we have signed a lease agreement for the cost of those units, and we've paid a down payment to secure those units. So they are ours. And as long as permits and things go through, which we continue to work on, we should begin. The Gantt chart predicts that we'll initiate the project on the Monday after the last day of school. So that's June 12th. Our students will be done on the 7th. And by the 12th, we anticipate work to begin at the East Campus. And it's projected on the Gantt chart to complete by the end of July. So by July 24th, we'll likely have occupancy, and it'll be great because the teachers can get in August and rearrange, and kind of domino effect. It will have some ramifications on several classrooms, so there'll be a lot of movement and motion within the East Main building and the upper elementary building over there in the month of August. Let's see, moving on. I am actually going to call on Dr. Wozniak to give you a update. I know previously at the last month's meeting I presented some of the results from the winter family survey. We have been reading and combing through the free responses that we received through that survey, identifying overarching themes, identifying common comments or suggestions, and we've synthesized that and identified some areas that we are focused on for as we recognize that the parents recognize as our strengths, and that we see and recognize that the parents are communicating as ways where we might change or improve. And so I'm going to call on Dr. Wozniak to summarize that for you.
Sure, thanks. So there were two open-ended questions on the parent survey. The first one was, please share any thoughts on how administration might improve your or your children's experience at LCCA. And typically the way, like Ms. Danu said, you read through all of the responses and you try to categorize them and collate them into making some sense out of, and percentages out of what kind of statements were. So we categorized these into a few main topics. They were primarily focused on the areas of teaching and academics, homework, behavior discipline, communications, and community building. So reading through my handout real quickly, in the teaching and academics area, there were some suggestions or concerns about the difficulty or rigor or seriousness of the expectations for learning. We believe that these responses reflect some general concern about some of our students being well equipped with basic tools of learning. It should also be noted that there were some comments in this area, a fair number of responses that suggested the need or desire for more challenging treatment of certain topics and more advanced courses. In the area of homework, responses showed a concern, some concern for too much and too difficult homework. Some of those remarks did include an appreciation for the worthwhile nature of the homework compared to what some termed as busy work that they have experienced in the past at other schools. Behavior and discipline responses reflected a desire for consistent application of our discipline policies, and there is a clear dislike of any kind of group punishment. Typically that refers to, keeping a class in for recess or something like that if they're not behaving very well. There were a few concerns of too much rigidity or maybe the arbitrary nature of some of the rules, but those were juxtaposed with some comments regarding praise for having a clear discipline system and balancing, and that the balancing of strict versus lenient has improved over time. In the area of communication, the primary suggestion was to provide more detailed explanations to families about changes when they happened. And the gist that we got from that was that families want to know the reason behind each change in policy or routine and the rationale that went into making those decisions. And finally, in the area of community building, the comments reflected a general desire for continued opportunities for the students and families to gather as a community, as a school, to build relationships, bond, and form community. It also bears worth commenting that there were a significant number, almost 22% of the respondents to this particular question basically said no complaints, no suggestions, or happy with everything. From that data, essentially, we tried to gather a few takeaways that we want to work on. It's clear that dialogue and discussion and observation needs to continue around the balance of rigor, high expectations, and providing students who need it the opportunity and support to gain the basic tools of learning that they might be lacking. And responsiveness to a varied population of learners still needs to be maintained, of course. The perception of large amounts of homework needs to be continually monitored and checked against the classroom practices, actual classroom practices. We feel many families may have come from an experience where little to no homework was expected, and sensitivity to a transition toward different expectations needs to be maintained. Discipline should be consistent and focused on individuals who digress from the expectations. Group punishment should be avoided whenever possible, and rules should be applied in a reasonable manner. On information, detailed information regarding the rationale behind changes to policies, procedures, and routines should be communicated clearly and effectively to avoid unnecessary confusion or erroneous assumptions about the motivations for change. And then, of course, pursuit and generation of opportunities for community building experiences should continue. We feel strongly that a sense of creating traditions should guide that pursuit. That was a summary and results from question 23 on the survey. Any questions about that from the board at all of that particular question?
Question 23 it is?
Yeah.
What was question 23?
That was the, please share any thoughts on how administration might improve your child's experience at LCCA. what I just summarized. The second and only other question I'll go over is question number 24 on the survey, which said, please let administration know what you love about LCCA. The responses in this question really focused on the areas of the teachers, staff, curriculum, the community and culture of the school, and the values and virtues of the school. In the area of teachers and staff, it's clear that the teaching staff received the most praise and thanks. Comments also include an appreciation for the hardworking and helpful nature of support staff and administrators. A number of the responses expressed a realization of the obstacles that have been overcome and praised the entire staff and the board for their determination in handling these challenges. In the area of curriculum, praise was expressed in general and a broad sense that the curriculum provided and supported by Hillsdale College is a strongly desired and welcome alternative to those found elsewhere. There were particular mention of the technology not being technology focused and not having kids in front of screens all the time, and approval of a focus on academic achievement and high expectations. In the area of community and culture, praise and thanks were given to the positive nature of the community and culture being created at LCCA. Particular mention was made of the caring, trustworthy, and safe nature of the environment. Those words were taken directly from examples in the survey. In the area of values and virtues, a deep appreciation for the values of the school and the visible nature of the inculcation of virtue into teaching was communicated. Although most comments praised the inclusion of virtues in a very general way, a number of responses cited the benefits of morning assemblies as examples of that. It should also be noted that there were a considerable number, 30 or more, in general overall praise, thanks, and appreciation for, quote, everything. These non-specific responses of approval suggest that a significant number of families have an appreciation for the big picture and are happy with their overall experience. Our major takeaways from this thanks and praise part of it, we realize that one of LCCA's most critical resources is human capital. The people who make up LCCA at every level are essential to the success of the school and make an indelible impression on the students and families. We also realize and appreciate that the curriculum provided by Hillsdale College is strongly desired and impactful alternative to what's being offered in typical schools. Staying true to this curriculum should remain a high priority of the school. It is clear that school culture and community are important to families. Continued effort should be made to intentionally build and strengthen that culture. The values and virtues upheld by the school are an important and necessary part of the development of a whole person. Continuing to develop and refine methods to integrate virtue growth into the LCCA experience should remain a priority. And then finally, from that last general comment of praise and thanks, there really is a reciprocal appreciation toward families for entrusting the education of their children to LCCA and for trusting the people who lead, manage, and execute the mission of the school to do so with the best interests of their children as the primary objective. So those are the major takeaways we got from both of those questions.
Thank you, Dr. Wozniak. To wrap up my portion of with my leadership report, the other things to note are that I facilitated a faculty intent to return survey. So as we look to renew employment agreements, I've communicated and been having conversations with current employees about their intentions for next year. Our hope or timeline for that is to have employment agreements mailed out to teachers before, on the Friday before we break for spring break, to give them some time to receive that and process and determine their acceptance. We've also hired a new full-time nurse at West. She started on February 1st. Mrs. Dunnick is her name, and she's fit right in and is a phenomenal addition to the campus over here. We're very pleased to have her. And we have also hired a long-term sub to take on some Latin courses at West through the remainder of the school year. Mr. Bush is his name, and he too, phenomenal. We lucked out with these two mid-year hires. sometimes those are risky. So we really, we're so pleased and excited with both of those as additions to the West team. They're phenomenal. And finally, just a couple things, upcoming events to be aware of. Breaking news, there's a snow day tomorrow. Okay, snow day, stay home. And also because of that, the water park event at the Ingleside, hosted by TLC, has been canceled as well, unfortunately. But we also are just about extending our long weekend, because Friday and Monday were breaks from school already. And then when we return, we begin parent-teacher conferences on the 23rd. Information about signing up for the opportunities for that goes tomorrow. It will still go tomorrow. Teachers will send their links, and the reviewer will have information for upper school families on how to sign up for that. The yearbook staff is hosting a Dress Like Your Favorite Literary Character Day for, and hopefully some photo ops and some fun pictures that they can put in a spread to the yearbook. So that'll be on February 24th. And then some rescheduling of games and things caused, we canceled now. Anyway, we had to do a makeup all-school spirit game, which will be the boys' last game of the season, which is on February 24th at Oconomowoc High School at 6:30. And that finalizes my leadership report. Any questions? Take it away. Can we move this one?
I'm sorry, Margaret, no question. Just want to commend you and Eric and anyone else involved with putting a little bit more meat on the bone of the parent and staff surveys. I think that was very helpful for all of us, so thank you.
Absolutely. And everything that Dr. Wozniak reported, Tom, is in a document that I can share to you. Just didn't get that one sent out.
Thank you.
Margaret, if you could copy me on that also.
Yes, of course.
Some of the parents, I thought the survey was also teachers' responses as well.
Not included in the report that we just shared. There were two separate surveys, so we just combed through the free responses on the family survey.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like you to copy on that
Of course.
as well. Thank you.
Being a numbers guy, about how many survey results or comments would you say aggregated those 5?
Yeah, so the first question, there were 145 responses to the first question and 155 responses to the second question. The comments, though, it's tricky to analyze this stuff, right? Because a single person's comment can include 3, 4, 5 comments, right? So when you categorize things, you try to categorize them. For instance, you might make a comment, and I would tick off 3 different things that you said. And so the aggregate comments are more than the respondents usually. So after you group them, try to figure out about what percentage-ish or so of respondents were in that area. The way I read them was from most to least percentage of comments.
Okay. So maybe not the exact number, but at a high
Yep.
level of those 5, are they equally split between the teaching, homework, behavior, communication? And
Nope,
community building?
I wrote them down because I figured you were. In the first one, about 28% or so of the responses were having to do with teaching and academics. And by the way, not all of those, even though this question was worded in the sense of what are some things we could do, positive suggestions, there were some, I guess what you might call as criticizing or complaint type things, but there are also positive comments mixed in there as well, right? And constructive comments. So 28% overall, 16.5% for homework, about 13.5% for the behavior, 13% in the area of communication, 6% in the area of community building, which makes that 23% a pretty significant number of general no comment or no suggestions at this time. That's why I included that.
Do you have a feel for how much of that is the K through 6 versus 7 through?
That's even murkier to figure out. Other than context for the particular comment that you look at, some people made a comment that this refers to lower school, or I'm a lower school parent, some said upper school. It was too difficult to tease that out because of it being obscure. I think if anything, that we could learn from that, I think in the future, a couple people commented that because we asked the one question, they had feedback from both levels, and those feedbacks would be different, right? So we might want to tease out a way to ask a question and split it up a little bit more in the future. It was too difficult the way it was worded to make any sense of a trend one way or the other. I don't think it would be valid to do that.
So, from what you've learned going through this, it seems like there's really great feedback in the comments. How would you improve on it the next time you do a survey?
I think maybe looking at the way the question is those questions are worded, and how many open-ended questions, if there's a way to specify between lower and upper school, might be a good way to do it. But I know with these kind of open-end questions, sometimes the actual wording of the question is quite important to how, what kind of responses you're gonna get.
We send out like 4 separate surveys, like one's K through 3, 4 through 6, middle school, high school.
I think there are some ways to, within the survey itself, to delineate, if you have comments with branches, I think there's some technology that we can use to not make separate surveys, but have them, if you are a parent of an upper school, or if you want to give feedback to the upper school, go down this path. You have a lower school child, and go this path, something like that. But I think those are good things to at least think about as we formulate a survey for next time.
How often we do this once a year or twice a year, or how?
Is it twice?
Twice a year?
Yep, we'll do it
Okay.
this
Alright. Have we thought about publishing? I mean, I know your report will be attached to the minutes, but getting out there, the findings of the survey, like in another format, like, as a follow-up, thanks for filling out the survey, here's kind of our
I
findings.
suppose that's possible. We haven't discussed how we might want to disseminate that back again, but we could discuss it.
Please check the board minutes posted on the website.
Yeah, you could do that.
Well, in a way that maybe is more accessible, like just saying, hey, it's out here, here's a link or something. So people know and don't have to dig for it. And at all our families, how many filled out a survey, would you say?
I don't have the totals of the full survey, 180 something.
84, I think.
Yeah, there were some people who skipped these questions, but for whatever reason. Some people don't like to answer open-ended questions. They just tick off the multiple choice ones or the Likert scale, and that's it.
Maybe we could do some sort of incentive keychains or something for everyone who fills out a survey. I don't know. Just to
Well,
get,
just
more involvement.
As we do the next surveys, like how do we better measure these things, and are we improving, are we flat,
That's a good point. Sometimes you don't want to change it too much, because then the data you get from the second one has really nothing to do with the data from the first one. It's hard to tell trends, but I think those are all good conversations to have as we develop the next survey.
As it relates to some of the areas of strengths and improvements, is there anything we're going to expand upon that we're doing currently or do differently? Is there other discussions?
Well, I think we're always looking for ways to integrate the virtue development a little bit more. The assemblies are amazing, but I think there's probably more that we can do. And this is just my opinion. You're asking me. I haven't talked to Ms. Dean you too much about this, but I think there are ways to do more with virtue development in that. Community building. I think there's as the school grows, we're still very young. Kids are still, believe it or not, getting to know each other still. And I think there's probably strides we can make in building closer, tighter community at the schools, within the kids, and possibly with the parents as well.
Well, I echo Tom's statement earlier. I really appreciate you digging into the results, providing us that feedback. It's not easy doing that, and to have it nailed down at 28% for one, it's 16.5% for another. Keeps your finance guy happy.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, not on the survey. I just wanted to add a couple other questions on the report. For the recent DPI payment that came in February, that's a blend based on our January count. So is that the 497 that's fully verified?
501 was our January count.
501, okay.
What was that total again? The percentage of, do you want to on that?
I didn't count the
That's fine.
3%.
Do you have a feel for, so the 5% of the current body that didn't re-enroll, say that's about 25 students, do you have a feel for, is it concentrated in any area of the grades, or is it spread out?
It's concentrated in 8th grade.
In 8th grade? Oh, wow, okay.
Which is expected.
Okay.
8th grade melts.
Oh, you mean going into 9th grade?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Current 8th graders not returning.
Okay. So what is the enrollment for 9th grade next year at this moment?
I don't have that in my time.
Okay.
It looks like there's 5 seats available in the 8th. So whatever the next year is.
Sounds like the Hillsdale coaching report that was mentioned early on was really good. How often do you get a report from the K-12 team? I think once a year, twice a year?
Only after our visit. So this will be the only one for this year.
Okay. All right. How does it compare to last year's report?
We have not done a comparison.
Okay.
We have that last year's report in our shared drive, if you wanna.
Okay. I was just
Show
wondering.
where it is, yeah.
And they come back next year? Or is it just the first 2 years? Or
It's
is there-
typically the first 2 years, and then we could request for a visit in pre-school year, so like our teacher week. If there's something that we would like to focus on professional development leading up to the school year, we can submit a request. So I'm in conversations right now with the team about what I might like to, what we, the administrative team might like to implement, and we'll get on their radar of scheduling their visit.
But then they're not back for observation for class.
Not that I'm aware of. You can always request, like they're always open to, hey, come observe and give us another feedback, so we can put in a request if we're hoping to have them visit, which we're always welcome to their input, but I don't think they have us on the schedule rotation for year 3.
I suppose that's kind of a good thing, maybe they're not, it doesn't signal
Yeah,
that
we'll
they're too
take it as
concerned.
a-
We'll take it as a, yeah.
That's a good sign, they're not like, we're coming back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe that's something we can talk about in the next meeting. No? Thank you for all the information. And no more questions.
All right. Yes.
You are allowed it right before and after to take any comment or question, right? When you,
Yes.
after you discuss the topic.
When the
Um,
time comes, yeah.
I wasn't sure if that's now or not, that's all. If you're moving on to the next topic.
Sorry, just on the agenda here, back to it. yet.
Okay.
Next up is the authorizer report, and I just wanted to give a quick update so people know where everything is at in the process. And I received a call from Paul Farrow's team, and their staff is working on the first draft of our 5-year charter, and they anticipate to have a first. They'll run that by us in the next couple of weeks, probably, to start the back and forth and make sure that everyone's comfortable with it, with the goal of having everything finalized and submitted to the DPI by the end of April at the latest. Now the deadline isn't absolutely until the end of June, but we want to have it in long before then, and that's the goal. And then that contract will take effect on July 1st. So everything is moving ahead as planned, and we're excited to move forward with them. And any other new updates on that, we'll keep everyone posted. Any questions about that? Moving on to the next item, which is the 2023-2024 preliminary budget. What's that?
I don't want one. There's a lot of-
So we did a few minor updates to, sorry, that's my faculty meeting report right there. Here we go. A few minor updates to the 23-24 preliminary budget since I presented to the board on January 7th. And it's hard to see, but revenue has stayed the same. The areas, the lines in bold are the areas that have been updated or adjusted since early January. So we've made some updates to the salaries and the insurance coverages because we've finalized the percentage increase of the benefits that we offer to faculty and staff. We also, in the construction services and building rental, we made some adjustments because we've narrowed down and finalized some numbers on the projects that I mentioned during my report. So we had originally budgeted $100,000 for the basement remodel here at West, and it's coming in closer to $65,000. And the original thought was the need for a $475,000 loan for the addition to the upper elementary building at East, and that is projected to come in closer to $300,000. So we've adjusted those numbers there, and then as far as we've made some adjustments because of the lease amendment with Vesta for the additional classrooms, and also with Bridge Church for the minor additional space we'll be using in the sanctuary. So those numbers are a little bit more targeted. And then with the change in the potential for an additional loan, the long-term capital debt principal and the long-term capital debt interest has been adjusted as well. And so the original budget I presented on January 7th had us with about a $33,000 or something surplus, but now with this more targeted, fine-tuned, with the more information we're acquiring as we get deeper into these projects, we're trending at about projecting $156,625 surplus for the year 23-24. And so I give you that kind of updated glimpse at the numbers you're already familiar with, so that I can move into the next item on the agenda. Christine, is it okay if I move into my request? So the next item on the agenda for the evening is my request for approval on the salary and benefits portion of that budget. As I mentioned earlier as well, I'm hoping to renew contracts, and because we're expanding into 11th grade and adding classrooms to add sections at East, I need to hire more staff. And so I have a report that I shared to you a week ago now, I guess, that breaks down the salary component by division that we're currently expensing this school year, and then it shows you what I'm asking for in order to be able to hire for next school year. The assumption is 3%, up to 3% or 3% salary increase for employees. An assumption of a 10% increase in health insurances, dental, and then also we're making an assumption that 80% of our employees will participate in the retirement plan that we're working to roll out as well. And so those have played into our numbers, but you can also see the staffing needs for full-time new hires and part-time new hires. And so a total of 9 additional full-time employees and 4 additional part-time employees. And I'm hoping for board approval on a $4,581,000 to hire an appropriate staff to keep going in the 23 and 24 school year. Questions or comments on, or do you have to have a vote before you discuss?
Yeah, I guess we should make a motion to approve and then we'll have a discussion. So would someone like to make a motion to approve the staffing, the salary and benefits proposal, 2023-2024 staffing plan and budget?
I'll motion to approve the 23-24 staffing budget.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Tom. Now we can discuss, any questions?
Just a couple of points of clarity regarding our policy around budgeting. The current accounting policy says we would have the preliminary budget presented to the board in next month meeting. So we pulled it up based on the need. I was gonna talk about this in finance committee meeting, but probably relevant now. Likely, not likely, we're gonna have to make some changes to the policy in terms of the calendar of when budgeting happens to better give Margaret and her team the ability to do this. We're not under the gun. We're not officially approving a budget for next, like, the full operating budget, revenue and expenses now. That happens in June. So this is really just
To allow her to hire and.
the best guidance that we've got. We've gone through 2 versions of this, so this is for the staffing plan only. I guess a question, do you have in one document comparable of what we saw in January 7th meeting versus this one? I know you talked about some of the changes that were bolded, but do you have like a side-by-side comparison also? Or maybe
I
just
can
about,
pull up the slide from January 7th, but no, I do not have a side-by-side comparison.
on the, I guess the staffing plan, is there any changes to the personnel, the 904?
No, those remain the same as I presented in the January 7th meeting.
So the changes were really just updates to assumptions on health insurance and dental insurance.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this specifically on the January 7th meeting, so the updates to the 23-24 preliminary that I just showed, we fine-tuned because we got the percentage assumption for the healthcare, so we tweaked and fine-tuned that, and we, like I said, fine-tuned the construction and lease amounts, and so the overall 23-24 preliminary budget is up to date, but the staffing hiring plan remained the same.
Okay.
So this is just a breakdown of current expenses, current budget,
Yep.
and next year's budget.
Okay. Could you jump back over to the prelim budget, please? Start at the revenue.
No changes to the revenue since January 7th.
So this is assuming 575 for that?
That's correct.
Okay. So we're up 9% in revenue. We scroll down to the percentage change in expenses. 7%. And just for everybody's benefit, schools are on more of a cash-based type method, not a GAAP method. So you have some one-time expenses in here, like paying for the construction cost. There's what, I think it's 360-ish thousand in total between the basement.
355 in the budget.
So if you were to look at this on a GAAP basis, that surplus would be quite a bit more than what is reported on a cash basis. Okay.
I just have a question out of curiosity. Do you know what foreign language we're gonna be offering? I know we're looking at hiring part-time.
Well, I have in the budget for the potential to hire, but to commit that I will be right now is not
It's
something
not
I'm,
final.
able to do.
Gives you the ability to do it if you can.
Possibly, yes. The components of scheduling is
Got it.
what eliminated it. So if we can get Bill's schedule and have enough classrooms, then we would have a possibility to do it if it's approved in this budget. But if it works out that I wouldn't, then we wouldn't. Right.
How soon will teacher contracts go out?
The Friday before spring break, when do we go on spring? The March 17th? I should really know this, but I don't. March.
When do you expect them back?
We'll give them till the first Monday of April.
Tom or Tim?
Tom, Tim, anything?
I've got one question with Margaret, for 9 additional full-time equivalent positions, 4 part-time, I got that right?
Yes.
Next year.
Mm-hmm.
My only question is, what positions, if any, amongst those 13 are non-instructional? In other words, classroom teachers, I would consider any special education teachers or support staff to be instructional. So with that definition, how many of those 13, if any, are non-instructional positions?
So he's asking how many are instructional versus non-instructional. I'm looking for one non-instructional in the business office, potentially a business office assistant, and I'm potentially looking for a part-time recess supervisor. That would be non-instructional but supervisory, but then also potentially a part-time college counselor to start building our college counseling program for the soon-to-be 11th graders. Those would be the only non-instructional.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry, and a facilities assistant is a hope as well. Thank you, Terry.
And the facilities assistant is FTE or part-time?
That would be full-time.
Okay, thanks.
And again, just to be very clear, this is like my leanest ideal. So I do still have some, if necessary, tweaks. If I had to trim, I could.
Understood, thanks.
Mhm.
Okay. I think we're ready for a vote then? So it has been moved and seconded to approve the 2023-2024 staffing plan and budget. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. moving on to the next item, which is the 2023-2024 LCCA academic calendar, and we do have one public comment, I believe.
Yes. I have a comment about an area that you were also speaking about earlier. So, first of all, Mr. Hastings, I want to thank you for kind of asking some more questions about the survey, kind of wanting more information about that. As a parent, I share some of those questions. So the idea of having some of those open-ended questions, those answers being more publicly available. As a parent, I want to know that my input is not only being read and heard, but I want to know, do other parents, share these concerns? Am I alone in this boat, or are there others with me? And so even just narrowing down to categories for parents to know that their concerns are being heard and considered is greatly appreciated. And I also have something, about the facilities issue. I can very much appreciate the short-term need for a solution to move forward. I think that I know that myself and other parents share some concern about the long-term vision being lost as far as a long-term solution, like putting money toward pods is going to help us until next year when we have the same problem. So I would love to hear some updates as far as what, where we're at with that long-term vision. And then lastly, regarding the 2023-2024 calendar, I know that I expressed this last year just to administration, didn't do it at the board level, but I know that myself as well as other parents who couldn't make it tonight would greatly appreciate for this to be an item where parents are surveyed, since this does very, very greatly directly affect both LCCA families as well as staff. I understand there are many factors that are involved in making these decisions, but to me, when it's something that does affect so many people, to have a few people making these decisions, I think doesn't necessarily represent those that it affects the most. So perhaps having both a staff survey and a parent survey that asks questions regarding things like a start and end date, like starting before Labor Day, I know was a huge frustration for many families, and it happened to turn out in their favor because the pods weren't ready. Things like going to R&R weekends versus having a weekly breath of early release. Those types of things where it directly affects students and families as well as staff would be an area where a survey would be appreciated before decisions are made.
Thank you. So on to
So the 2023-2024 school year calendar highlights you received earlier last week, and I'm asking for approval on this calendar so that it can be shared out to families. We start receiving inquiry at about actually right after Christmas break about next year's, happened last year too, right after Christmas break, which was helpful because I was like, oh, I should probably think about that. But that is the time when families are looking to hear and start to inquire about the breaks. They are looking to schedule vacations and things. So I think now is an appropriate time to be finalizing and sharing this out. The area public school districts calendars were compared, and we did align spring break to the Wisconsin Public School spring break for next school year, and we'll run our parent-teacher conferences in the same fashion, where one school day is no school day so that we can facilitate conferences. We did hear and respond to some parent feedback in regards to the breaks, the R&R weekends. Was asked that some might be Thursday, Friday instead of Friday, Monday. And I did take into consideration that the spring break ends on the Easter weekend, and so not all public schools are recognizing what some call Easter Monday, but the Monday after Easter I tacked on. So our spring break this year calendar will include the following Monday following Easter, because I know many families celebrate or travel on the Easter holiday and would be able to return on Monday in order to come back to school on Tuesday. So that is included as well. A start date of August 28th mirrors some of the neighboring public school districts. Some of them have just certain grades starting the week prior to Labor Day. So I think it was KM, who's I looking at? The KM calendar has kindergarten, 6th, and 9th grade starting prior to Labor Day. And then we also are putting on the calendar a day off of school for the gala, which we did not have on this year's calendar, but because the Liberty Gala will be on Friday, we are calling that, counting that as a no school day, so that parents can volunteer and help us prepare and then attend that event if they choose next May. Other than that, this calendar mimics very closely this school year's calendar. And I'm asking for board approval.
Okay, let's first make a motion to approve 2023-2024.
I move approval of the 23-24 academic school year calendar as presented. Ms. Tom.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion, questions?
Other than,
I don't have any questions. I just want to comment. I'm sure all of us, parents, staff, and board members recall a year ago when there was some consternation about this issue and the lack of alignment to surrounding public school districts and their calendars. So I just want to note appreciation to Margaret for taking all of that into account, and to the parents, we heard you and we did the best we could. So well done, Margaret.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, well, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 23-24 school year calendar. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. Okay, on to, now, I wonder how we can make Tom a little louder for this. Sorry, Tom, I know Tom's on speaker, and he's going to give an update on the policy curriculum committee job description. Go ahead and we'll, hopefully we can hear you. Just talk as loud as you can.
talk louder.
My apologies for not being there in person. But these two items, the next two items, when they were agendized, they were a little bit in flux, and I'm just gonna request that I'm allowed to report on both of those topics under my committee report, because neither one of them are ready for action.
Okay. That's fine. Okay, so the request was on the agenda, we have policy and curriculum committee job description, followed by policy to address public commentary at open board meetings. And both of those items are not ready for action tonight, so we will be moving them to later on in the agenda when he gives his report on the policy and curriculum committee. Okay. So in that case, we're moving on to the treasurer's report.
As Margaret had mentioned in her leadership report, the overall liquidity of the school is in a good spot, a very good spot actually. We remain undrawn on our $500,000 line of credit, just about $550,000 of cash on hand at the end of January, which is just before one of our per pupil aids would come in February, so that would be a drier time of the year for cash. So that's good. We're projecting cash at the end of the fiscal year to be a little over $1 million, which is inclusive of paying $250,000 of private notes. Those those note holders had extended their repayment until we settled the authorizer agreement. So overall liquidity of the school is great. Happy to report that the letter of intent from Paul Farrow's office on the authorization was adequate for us to close on the $400,000 term note that we had discussed back in September. That was for helping finance the facility expansions last year. So literally closed on that today. So the rates, although everybody knows rates have been going up, interest rates have increased about 2% over the last 6 months. The bank only increased the rate by 0.75%, which on an annual basis was around $3,000. Given that's below the $5,000 annual threshold that would require a board to vote on it, we move forward with it. And I would just underscore that we have a very solid relationship at Waukesha State Bank. So I want to have on record how much we appreciate and thank all of their support. And over the next few weeks, we'll be meeting, Margaret, Lori, and I, with the bank to be talking about our expansion for next year that we just outlined at a high level in the operating budget. So we'll be working with them to find the right mix of capital to fund the 350-ish thousand for the U 2.0 and building out the additional classrooms here. So we'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks. That's it for the treasurer report.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, we are moving on to committee reports, which also starts with you, Brian, the Finance Committee. Update?
Sure, everybody's done hearing me talk. For those that are interested in participating in lots of fun finance, we meet on the second Wednesday of the month virtually via Teams at 12 p.m. Typically go at about 1:15 or so. Trying to cut that down an hour, but we got a lot to talk about. So look for the agendas out there on the website if you want to attend. I mentioned we would be making some changes to the accounting policies surrounding the calendar on budgeting. The committee is in discussion on a variety of edits and changes. You know, as we gain more experience, we have context to policy, we clarify things or expand on them where we don't think they're sufficient. So the committee is dealing with that. And once we have some critical mass, we'll bring that to the board for discussion. So that's ongoing. Todd Gray, an advisor of the school, is working directly with CESA-5 in constructing a GAAP-type formatted financials. Part of the challenge of school-based is it's a little difficult to talk to creditors who deal with GAAP. So having a faster way of doing that is important. And just one example of that would be how our payroll and benefits get recorded in our system. We have some of our staff that will be paid into middle of August, some choose to be paid at the end of the year, and accruals need to be made for that. So that's just one example of what I'm talking about. We need to, in preparation for the discussion with the bank about the facilities expansion for next year, we have to get a concise package of information for next year on our operating budget that they can understand, and we can talk through what the uses of capital would be in terms of how we're going to spend money at East for the U. And then lastly, on the topic of our one campus long-term vision, we continue discussion to learn about bonding and what that process would look like. We had met with one of the largest underwriters of bonds here recently. This would be the third entity that we've spoke to. And they have financed about $2 billion worth of charter school bonds over the years, including a few other Hillsdale charter schools. And another classical group called Great Hearts Academy. They're very well experienced. Said there's a strong appetite for bonds, in particular with the Hillsdale brand. And got some good news with interest rates. Bonds are pegged to long-term rates, not short-term rates. When the Fed's increasing, that's all short-term. The long-term rates have stabilized. And the current guidance there is like 6 to 6 1/4 on 30-year fixed bond rates. 6 weeks ago, we were thinking it was going to be closer to 8, so that's really good news in our ability to afford things. So as we work through the project with the facilities committee, our timeline is to go to market with the bond at the end of this year or January, and they said that January is the best time of year to be going out to the bond markets when the capital is redeployed for the next year. So that's about the best time of year to be doing it, which fits our timeline, which is great. That's all I got.
Any questions?
No, thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Brian. Moving on to fundraising and communications. So quick update on that. We met as a committee on Monday, February 13th at Brannigan Inc. And the update basically included the Legacy Committee first gave a quick update on things they've been working on, and they've been doing, they had a wonderful event, a mother-daughter movie night, which was a huge success. Apparently there were 160 students in grades K through 6 along with their mothers that spent a fun evening at the East Campus watching Sing, I think was the movie, yeah, and raised about $300 in donations, so great school community event. Unfortunately, the water park event was discussed but will not be happening tomorrow. I don't know if that's probably not, you probably can't reschedule that. Oh, it is gonna be rescheduled? Okay.
March 2nd.
Oh, March 2nd, wonderful. Scheduled for March 2nd. Okay, sorry. Spiritware is closing at the end of this week, I believe, and tonight is the last night, so get your orders in for Spiritware if you haven't. And then there's also going to be a restaurant night that will be announced that will be happening in March. And then other fundraising items that were discussed, we had an update from the 2023 Liberty Gala Planning Committee, and things are underway in terms of planning. We use a website called One Cause for ticketing and sponsorships, etc. That's being built and ready to go. The hope is to start selling tickets on April 1st. And also the sponsorship materials for potential sponsors and donations for the auction, silent live auction, have been created. So those are going to be uploaded to the website in the coming days. So if you know of anyone who might want to donate something, please reach out. There'll be an email there too that's a website. You can contact the procurement team if you want to donate something, or you know someone who might be able to donate something to the gala, or a sponsor, etc. We would appreciate any help. And also need volunteers as well, and more information will be coming on that soon. And probably in the Revere there will be a sign up genius for volunteers. So that's coming as well. And we have secured an MC and auctioneer, and we are close to securing keynote speakers, so stay tuned on that. And that is basically it in terms of the Liberty Gala at this point. Also, we are still looking at some planned giving options that we will be working with staff to identify exactly how we want that to work, which financial planner will be working with to add some potential ways that people can give in addition to just making writing a check. They can donate stock, other ways that they can give. So, working on that. And then also we discussed a little bit looking ahead in terms of our one campus vision and what's going to be needed for that. Although we don't have an exact amount that we know needs to be raised yet, we're looking into capital campaign consultants and what they recommend in terms of a feasibility study and what that looks like, what makes sense for us, and it all kind of depends on how much money we need to raise. So we're working through that, and some initial information was presented to the committee, which will then be passed on to board members as we get a little more clarity on that. And one thing we know we can do and need to do immediately is start identifying grants. So no matter whether it's capital campaign or just a grant that can help us with operations and helping to fund the pods or whatever, any additional income we can get above per pupil funding is always a good thing. So if there's any parents out there, anyone in the community that has done grant writing and would like to get involved, please contact me because we really want to turn the heat up on raising money for the school. So, and then lastly, wanted to, actually that was it, sorry. So, any questions on? Okay, and then on to policy and curriculum committee, which is Tom Gale. So hopefully.
Thanks, Christina. First, on a purely personal note, I arrived about an hour at the East Campus about 1 hour prior to the beginning of the meeting, which gave me the opportunity to meet several staff members that I had not yet met, and that was a pleasure to meet them and have a brief conversation with each of them. So just wanted to note my enjoyment of that. Moving on from there, as I indicated earlier, we had hoped to present the draft of a policy to the board tonight that would outline the procedures and protocols involved with public commentary at board meetings. We had a excellent discussion about that policy at the committee meeting on Monday. Each committee member had thought of some things that needed to be included that nobody else had thought of. So the bad news is we're not able to present it for approval tonight, but the good news is we're going to come up with a far more comprehensive policy. That policy will be available for parents, stakeholders, whoever attends the meetings to have available as a reference so they know how to go about making their comments and when to make them. We will also have a printed copy of the meeting agenda available on the board table for attendees to look at before the meeting starts. Again, so they can understand the cadence and the sequence of the agenda items. Obviously, the agendas are also posted on the website, but that's just one more step we're going to take. The second thing that the committee took up was we did add one more thing to the charter that was requested at last month's January board meeting, which speaks to the annual presentation of the coming academic year's curriculum. That will be agendized in either June or July of each year. And then lastly, the committee had a discussion on some of the factors that Dr. Wozniak noted earlier under Margaret's leadership report with respect to feedback from the parent survey and opportunities for improvement on some of the issues Eric covered, such as rigor and workload, etc. So that's my report, and the committee does continue to meet the second Monday of every month at 4 p.m. Typically, we meet in person. If we meet virtually, a link would be established on the website. So that's my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Tom. One last thing about committees, we someone had emailed me actually just asking where some of the minutes were from a particular committee meeting and so forth. We're getting better at, we changed platforms with our website, and so some of the information didn't actually transfer all of it, and the committee section especially was a little bit messy, and we're trying to get that organized, so I think most of it is fixed by now, but please be patient as we continue to get that all worked out. But that's why if you were not seeing something, it was because of this transition in platforms and a new webmaster, and we're working out the kinks with that, so. Okay, so on to President's Report, and a couple things I wanna make people aware of. So, first of all, Daniel Furman has actually resigned from the LCCA Board, and we are extremely grateful for his many contributions that he's made to our school, and we wish him the very best. So I wanted everyone to be aware of that. And also the Facilities Committee, because the upper elementary building is now being really managed under the school operation, there's really not a need for the Facilities Committee to continue right now. We're sort of putting it on hiatus until the one campus project is identified, and then we need to ramp that up again and focus on the one campus. But until we can actually talk about the one campus publicly, there's no really need to meet until then. So stay tuned. We'll let everyone know when that starts again, and hopefully very soon. So, and then also on that note of the one campus, just to let everyone know, the board is evaluating several options right now. We have about a half a dozen or more actually possible locations that we're looking at and related funding options to support that. And so as soon as we're able to share more information on that, we will be promised to share that with you. We are just as anxious to get this figured out as everybody else, so thank you for your patience on that. And then any ideas or suggestions are always welcome. If you are aware of a particular location, please recommend it to us, because we may not know of something that's out there that a parent or someone may be aware of, as well as any funding. If you know someone who might wanna help us out, paying for this wonderful new building, that would be great. And, or if you would like to help fundraise, we would welcome that too, because we're gonna need a lot of help from our parent community and helping us to get to our one campus home. So, that's all I have to say on that. Any questions?
Just one point, to the Facilities Committee that's taking a sabbatical here for a couple months. Tremendous work from Mr. Gunn Heller sitting in the back, and Mr. Knapp sitting over there. To know what we're gonna spend and have a lease payment or a lease signed and a construction plan and Gantt chart this time of the year compared to last year is awesome. So that really takes pressure off, so we can focus on one campus. So just wanted to say thank you. So I know it's a lot of work.
So on that note, would someone like to make a motion to go into closed session under Wisconsin statute 19.851E? And Tom, do you want to read, do you have that statute handy or no?
I do, that we can go to legislation 19.85, select dash E, deliberation, negotiation, of public property. That's the public property, or specified public business, whatever opinion or bargaining require a closed session.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. We are now going into closed session.
We'll get the teams meeting going here. Okay.